With the steam season well underway, we see Transport Heritage New South Wales' 3642 heading through Engadine on the Illawarra line on Saturday, March 7th, 2015. The locomotive and its train heads its way to Wollongong, while other passengers travel by boat from Circuit Quay at Sydney Harbour to Wollongong Harbour, which is called the Rail and Sail Tour. The locomotive now makes its way into Thirlmere station, where it will pull up to deliver passengers. The locomotive's previous stop was Scarborough to also let off passengers. The locomotive will now leave for its destination, Wollongong, where shunting operations will take place for its return journey to Sydney, and some passengers from the train who paid for the rail and sail journey will be transferred by bus towards Wollongong Harbour to return to Circuit Quay by boat. On the return journey, 3642 heads back to Sydney through Thirlmere. Then we see the locomotive making its way through Stanwell Tops Tunnel. We will now conclude this trip with 3642 heading through Como, nearing one of its stops, Sutherland, before its full conclusion at Sydney. On the next day, Sunday, March 8, 2015, 3642 pulls into Hornsby station on the North Shore line to conduct shuttle journeys between Hornsby to Gordon. This is to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the North Shore line that famously crosses over the Sydney Harbour Bridge, despite that 3642 didn't travel over it to come to its destination.
Good morning, customers. Try on platform 1.
The North Shore Line was opened on New Year's Day 1890 as a singular track between Hornsby to St Leonards. Nowadays it links itself between Sydney Central as well as the main Northern Line to such places like Gosford and the Hunter Valley area. It's now time to see the 36 class loco depart on its first shuttle journey to Gordon, with FL 220 What a Nuisance at the rear of the train, leading the way. At Warrawee, we see 3642 make its way back to Hornsby from its first trip. Warrawee is a residential station as it has no shops in the area. Back at Hornsby, we await the departure of the second shuttle while a freight train makes its way through. The freight train will make its way through towards the Northwestern Line, which serves major stations such as Strathfield. FL 220 What a Nuisance was a former New South Wales Government Railway 442 diesel class locomotive, built in 1970 as 4220. The locomotive was purchased to the Chicago Freight Leasing Company Australia in 2001. The company is a freight diesel and train leasing company that is a subsidiary of the Chicago Freight Car Leasing Company over in America. Its name, What a Nuisance, was named after a thoroughbred racehorse that won the 1985 Melbourne Cup at Flemington in Victoria. The train is now leaving for its second trip to Gordon. At Gordon, we see FL220 and 3642 pulling in with the third shuttle trip. We will now conclude with 3642 leading the train towards Hornsby.
Thirlmere last week?
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, we thought out there with public transport.
Yeah?
Quarter past 4 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Hard work.
Yeah, we got out there about 24 after 10.
Every Sunday between March to November, Trainworks hosts shuttle journeys from Thirlmere to Buxton and return on the former Picton-Mittagong loop line. The locomotive that is usually seen on these runs is Transport Heritage New South Wales's 2705, the only surviving member of the 27 class locomotives. Here we see the locomotive at Kurrajag on Sunday the 22nd of March 2015. Then we see the locomotive pulling into Buxton, where it will be turned around to the rear of the train on the passing loop. 2705 was built by the Hunsell Engine Company in Leeds, England, as one of the 8 27 class engines built for the New South Wales Public Works Department as railway construction locomotives that started off in 1913. It was then known as number 1115. By 1917, the New South Wales Government Railway assumed responsibility for railway construction and were known as the G class until by the New South Wales Government Railway Renumbering Scheme of 1924, they are known as what it's called today, the 27 class. When they stopped work for railway construction, they were commissioned as mixed traffic goods engines for the New South Wales Government Railways until they were withdrawn from service in the 1950s. 2705 is then preserved by the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum and still is today. The locomotive is now finishing its work with departing from Buxton to Thirlmere. After nearly spending the month of March at Thirlmere, Australian Railway Historical Society ACT 6029 seen double-heading with Transport Heritage New South Wales' 3642 in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales heading for Moss Vale. The two locos had departed from Picton after meeting with Transport Heritage 4419-4520 with the train from Sydney. The two engines are seen at Thirlmere on Sunday, March 29, 2015. The two locomotives will make their way into Barrel, home of the Don Bradman Museum, Australia's most famous cricketer. After dropping off passengers, the two locomotives will now make their way to Moss Vale. At Moss Vale, the two locomotives begin shunting operations by pushing the carriages onto the refuge track. Then the two locos head for the water tower. We now move to Exeter. Here we see a Sydney Trains passenger train heading for Sydney. It was here on March 13, 1914, which was considered at the time the worst crash in New South Wales railway history, as a goods train crashed into the Thirlmere mail train. At that time the main line was singular with a crossing loop and a down refuge siding.
I gather it's not regular. No. This is a once in a while thing.
Once a month or something.
We were driving from Moss Vale and saw all the people by the railway, so we were completely puzzled.
This is it.
The two locomotives will now make their separate ways. 6029 is seen thundering through Exeter, making its way back home to its base in Canberra, with a train that had arrived earlier from Canberra to Moss Vale. To conclude Rail Around New South Wales for May 2015, we see 3642 also heading its way back to its home base at Thirlmere up the Thirlmere banks. 3642 took the train from Moss Vale to Picton alone. 4490 and 4520 will then take the train on to Sydney.